Hello everyone, welcome to EU Talks. I am Sylvain Gambert. I work on environment and the ocean at the EU Delegation to the United Nations. The episode of this week is focused on water on the occasion of the opening of the UN Water Conference in New York. My colleague Jelena and I will be interviewing a very special guest today, Christopher Swain, who is a water advocate and who has been swimming in the most polluted waters of the US for now almost 30 years to raise awareness on water quality. Welcome to EU Talks.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us in EU Talks today. We have the special episode outside. We came to East River in particular because you swim here.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear why and when and how was it?
So I've swum here actually a few different times since 2003, and it's always in the spirit of clean water. A lot of times people say, like, how did you get going on this idea or whatever? I think I was just a kid who loved the water. When I was little, some of my earliest memories are playing on the beach and swimming in the ocean, and like my grandmother and my sisters and all that stuff. And this is before I knew about pollution and, you know, contamination and all these things. As just a kid playing. And I think a little bit of that kid survives now because I have that sense that everything should be clean and you should be able to swim and paddle and fish, and it shouldn't be all contaminated and everything else. So when I get older and I learned all the problems, I went through first that phase I think that you often do in your 20s where you get angry and you're like, I want to find someone and blame them for this thing. And then I realized you just got to work if you want something to be different. So one of the things we have in this country is a law that any navigable waterway is supposed to be clean enough and safe enough to swim. So I got going on that idea that I should go out and actually exercise my rights and then see what happened. Of course, people all say that you're crazy. And then I would say, well, what's crazy is actually the amount of sewage and heavy metals and toxic chemicals that we are dumping into our own waterways.
And what do you put on yourself in order to protect yourself? How does it look like?
It depends on how dangerous it is. So in some areas, like when I was doing Newtown Creek, Gowanus Canal here in Brooklyn, and then Brooklyn, Queens, like right across from the UN, the Newtown Creek, I would do dry suit because I don't want the water to even touch me. It's so bad and it's so dirty and I could get so sick. So if you're dealing with like coal tar residue and gas and oil slicks, and then the sewage basically when it's been raining, it's so bad and you can get so sick that I don't want the water to touch me. So dry suit just keeps the water off you. And then I don't swim with my head under in those situations. So, well, like my grandmother I was telling you about before, like then you do like the head up grandma breaststroke. And then for the other swims when it's cleaner, then a wetsuit, like you would see a triathlete or something do. And then it can do head down freestyle swimming.
And here, can you show us where exactly did you, and how long was the
Oh, I
swim?
did the whole thing. I mean, I started from way up in Montauk and Long Island. I went all the way down through, and then all the way out back to the ocean under the Narrows Bridge. So I went all the way.
I like that. Thanks so much.
Hi Chris.
Hey.
Thank you for sitting down with us today. I know you just had a nice little walk with my colleague Jelena. Now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into your work and the UN Water Conference. So my first question is, you have a very different perspective from what we do as diplomats staying in the office. You actually swim in the issue, you in the thick of it. So from your perspective, and having talked to politicians and community leaders, maybe water companies, what do you think are the priority actions on water? What are the biggest challenges? What needs to be done first?
I think I have two answers to that. The first answer would be immediately protect everything that's in a pristine state. Anything that's left that's near pristine, we should try to protect it, and then go do the cleanups. If we wait to do the cleanups and then go back, there'll be nothing pristine remaining. So I think that would be the first answer from the conservation side. But I think the other answer is that we're really facing not so much a political problem or a science problem. I think the solutions are known, and often it's a question of political will and the rest of it. And I think what can solve it is the relationship part of it. Like our relationship with the water is what really drives everything, I think. And to the extent that we protect the people and the places that we love, things sort of sort themselves out. So I think actually on the policy side, one of the things that we should be looking at is how do we increase the use and enjoyment of the water? Like how do we create access and opportunities for people to do things on the water? I mean, people who swim and surf and sail, like they're all about protecting the ocean, right? We never have a problem with that. So, and the people who are using the rivers that are out there fishing or kayaking or doing what they're doing with the rivers, they're always going to advocate for them.
Now that's perfect transition to my second question actually, which is about advocacy, and because you do a lot of swimming, but you do also a lot of talking in I understand in schools, and you've met more than 80,000 students or schools, something like this.
Over the decade.
What sort of feedback do you get? What is the level of awareness of people that you meet, of the students on this relationship with water? And what surprises you, or what has it made you, act and think different in your activism?
Yeah, definitely. One piece of feedback I get from the students is they appreciate that there's an adult who's actually willing to risk their life and put their body in the way. So you remember when we were kids, like, adults always tell you what to do, but then they do something else. So I think I get somewhere right away with all the kids, because it's like, oh, well, this guy's serious about this, right? The second thing I noticed, particularly with the younger children, is that they see some of the insanity of our solutions. Like here we are in New York in the East River, and if it was raining today, then we'd have millions of gallons of raw sewage that was unable to be processed by nearby treatment plants like the one, at Newtown Creek there. And it would be going straight into this waterway behind us. And if you go to a class of kindergartners and you say, do you think it's a good idea for, on a rainy day, everyone in New York City to flush their toilets into the river? They would say, no, that's a terrible idea. And then swim in it, right? It's bad for the fish, it's bad for everything. Why would we do that? Why don't we come up with another solution? And you think, well, we can design an iPhone, we can build a space station. Why can't we figure out how to not do that? And I try to remind them, like, nobody likes to be told what to do, right? So I tell kids, like, spend more time in the water. Like, if there's things you like to do, if you like to swim, if you like to go to the beach, if you like to kayak, whatever you like to do more of that. Because then you'll be out there, you'll see the resource, you'll be watching, you'll notice things, you'll see changes, and then you'll immediately want to advocate, right? You're like, wait, don't mess up my...
So they consider you like a superhero swimming in this
I think some
really
do.
filthy water. But have you found the next toxic swimmer, the one who's going to follow your lead and take...
I noticed that no one ever steps into this space, even if I take time off. So, and my sister, Amanda teases me and says, oh, there's going to take a team of psychiatrists to figure out why you do what you do. But I think what's driving me is the love thing. Like, I love the water and I want it to be clean. I loved it when I was little and I love it now. And I think the next person who steps into it is going to come from that. Because it's very difficult. It's hard to be out there in difficult conditions and all kinds of weather, big waves, ships, everything else, and then dealing with the toxic chemicals, the heavy metals, the sewage. You really have to want that experience to create the platform to advocate. So it's going to have to come from somebody who really feels it.
And do you see any change? You've been swimming in polluted waters for a number of years now.
Yeah.
In terms of wastewater, agricultural runoff, so has it improved? Or it feels like even a space like this is reconnecting with water.
Yeah.
Whereas in the 60s, cities were completely cut off from their water side. Yeah. Do you see a change, a positive change, or it needs to be much faster and much more?
I think both. I mean, I see some changes. I certainly see, like you say, that this is an example of a place where normally we would have turned our back on the river and we're engaging a little bit. There are spaces and places that let us engage and access the water. But I also think it's, to some extent, where I feel like it's trite to say this, but we're never really doing enough, and it's never really fast enough. If you look at the globe, that's one ocean and a bunch of islands. Like, we're islanders. We're living on islands, on a water planet. That has got to mean something.
Well, this is very much linked to the UN Water Conference, I think, to look at the water issue at the global level as a connected planet. So it's, I would like to have your views on this. What do you expect from it? There are a lot of expectations on the conference. That we haven't had one in 46 years. It's a lot of people will be coming. 193 member states, like countries, will discuss. And your approach is very much sort of bottom-up community approach and going directly yourself in the water. This is world leaders coming at a sort of top-down level. What are your expectations? What do you think can come out of all those countries meeting and discussing water for the first time for so long?
Yeah, very few things unite people the way water does, right? I mean, you can go a few days without it. I mean, in the absence of clean water, all life as we know it goes away. Clean water is a prerequisite for the realization of every single one of the human rights. Like it sits foundationally as something that everybody needs. And we say water is life, but it is. But water's been not just a source of sustenance to us as a people, but also a source of inspiration and spiritual uplift and the rest of it.
You mentioned human rights. I mean, we've been talking a lot about integrity of water ecosystem and pollution, but there's this whole other dimension, which is access to water, and the statistics are shocking. It's 2 billion people have no access to clean water in the world. Is that part of your work as well, or like you come across that sort of situation?
Yeah, I think the way I see it is I've just been lucky and privileged my whole life. I mean, I've lived in situations where I could just turn on the faucet and water would come out and it was clean. Even the water in New York, the water in the toilet is clean. I mean, it's drinking water, quality water. It's bizarre. And so I think that is a gift, but with it comes an obligation. Like we should be sharing that with other people. So I feel like it's sort of the most fundamental reflection of our humanity that we have this thing that we all need and that could bring us together. And some of our work should be in that place. It's difficult because some people live in places that make it very challenging to have sustainable access to clean water. But I also think it's sort of this minimum thing that we could do for each other too. In some sense, we're all citizens of the world. Water does unite us in many ways. And I think on the human rights side, if you distilled human rights down, it would be everybody deserves the same fair deal. Everybody gets to share the same gifts. But that's not what's actually happening, right? So everything we can do in that direction is what we should be doing.
I mean, you're already doing a tremendous job in pushing this agenda. This brings me to my last question, actually. It's how do you keep going? Like, you end up in like really extremely polluted water. You probably got sick several times, or I don't know. I'd be curious to know what is really the worst situation you've been, facing. But how do you, on the following day, you put your wetsuit and you go back in that water? Like, what keeps you going?
Well, I certainly have gotten sick. I mean, to be fair, I've gotten, ear infections, sinus infections, skin rashes, overuse injuries from the swimming. I've gotten, banged into things, gotten cut open on debris that's in the water, everything else, and gotten all kinds of bacterial stuff when you get sick to your stomach and everything else. So I've had all of that. But to your question, what keeps going? I mean, I think in some ways it sounds really basic, but I believe that desire drives everything, that strong feelings are what really change things. And I feel like I was told in university and in academic circles, like it's big ideas that do it, right? It's that change the world. I don't agree. I think what changes the world is when people feel very strongly about things.
So let's do it for the water then.
Let's do it for the water, and let's do it for each other.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was a great inspirational talk, and we'll see you around during the water conference.
All right.
Thank you, Chris.
All right.
Thank you for watching this episode of EU Talks.
And don't forget, this week is New York Water Week. It's also the UN Water Conference, so we'll see you around.
See you in the next episode of EU Talks.